Hey, YouTube, and welcome back to a new video with Rams Fan at YT. Today we're going to be going over my predictions for the upcoming week of football. Already some games have been called off for today, and as you can maybe hear, the wind and the rain howling around the country at the moment in the aftermath of a storm by the looks of it is going to continue to cause havoc, I imagine, for this upcoming week of football. So don't take it as read that any of the games that I'm going to be predicting are 100% guaranteed to go ahead. In fact, I would rather suspect a few of them are called off. But hopefully the FA Trophy 5th round games do go ahead. But we are not going to start with that. We're going to start with some League One action, which is due to go on tonight. And the first of which is in the Northwest. Normally a hot spot for rain, so maybe it won't continue. But it's Blackpool versus Stockport County. Yes, Blackpool managing to sort of stabilise themselves a bit. They're currently 3 points above the relegation zone. And I would confidently say now that they will be all right come the end of the season. I would suggest Blackpool shouldn't really be getting relegated to League Two in the first place. It's a difficult matchup, though, up against Stockport County, who are currently in the playoffs on 46 points. They're in 5th. I think this will be a fairly routine win for Stockport. 3-0 to the Greater Manchester side. Sticking in Greater Manchester, got Bolton Wanderers as they host Burton Albion. Bolton may be thinking at home this might be a bit of a given game to win. They'll still be hoping to be able to get into the top 2, but they've got 6 points to claim, and Lincoln City have a game in hand on them as well, who they need to catch up to get into the top 2. But essentially, they must be winning against Burton Albion, who I fluctuate week to week whether they're going to be relegated or not. At the moment, I think they may well do. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if they ended up in 20th and managed to scrape survival as per. Bolton, though, I will have for winning this game 2-1. Cardiff City versus Barnsley. Yes, Cardiff have been impeccable at the moment. 4 points clear Lincoln City. They're definitely going to get automatic promotion. I think they will get the title, but they do need to keep focused. It's very easy to take your ball off. They're up against the Barnsley side, who have improved a lot in recent weeks. 5 points over the last 3 games is much better form. I think it could actually be a draw in this one, couldn't it? A 1-1 draw at the Cardiff City Stadium. Huddersfield Town versus Luton Town, 6th versus 7th. A very important game. If Luton win this by I believe it will be an over 3-goal swing, 3+ goal swing, then they will manage to get into the playoffs. If not, it will remain as is. But essentially, Luton want to win this to get into the playoffs. Huddersfield, interesting news coming out of their camp a couple of weeks back was their switch to Liam Manning. And we'll see if that's made much of a difference. But I do think Luton win this one by 2-1. Lincoln City versus Bradford City. 2nd place Lincoln versus 4th place Bradford. Another exciting game on our hands. 10 points is the difference between these two sides, but both of them have really surprised probably a lot of people this season compared to see how well that they're doing, really. I suspect Bradford win this one by 2-1. Not much sense in it. I just have a sneaking suspicion. I mean, it could very easily go another win to Lincoln. Plymouth Argyle versus Mansfield Town. 11th place Mansfield versus 14th place Plymouth. Both of these teams are on phenomenal runs of form. Unbeaten 5 and Mansfield, as are Plymouth. Both of them on a great run of form. I think maybe at home, Plymouth Argyle, we know how much home park can become a fortress. 3-1 to Plymouth Argyle. At home park, yeah. I just have a sneaky suspicion that home ground, it may suit them. Rotherham United versus Northampton Town. Bit of a relegation battle, this one. 21st versus 23rd. 4 points separating the two sides, both in relegation zone at the moment. A must not lose game, I would argue, for both of these two teams. I suspect maybe Rotherham win this one at home. I don't have any reason. They are, quite frankly, being very poor of late. I've just got them to win 3-0. Maybe because of it's a caliber of opposition. I don't know. But yeah, not going to lie. I think it's a tough one to actually call. Stevenage versus Peterborough. 8th versus 9th. An important 3 points if either side win this. Does suddenly open up the possibilities of maybe entering into a playoff run, especially with Huddersfield versus Luton as well happening tonight. And Stevenage have been throwing away a few too many points of late. And haven't won in quite a while. They were in a commanding playoff position for quite a while. I think maybe a draw in this one. A 1-1 draw will probably be a fair result. Wycombe Wanderers versus Wigan Athletic. 12th place Wycombe versus Wigan, which have dropped down to 19th. Yeah, I mean, Wycombe lost their last game before that one. Quite a decent run of form. Maybe we've seen Wycombe begin to drop a few points now. They're a bit floating mid-table at the moment. 0-0 draw is what I'm going to go with here. Wigan don't score a lot, but their defence is actually relatively good. So yes. Doncaster Rovers versus Leyton Orient. Doncaster Rovers, 3 games now unbeaten. They may be able to escape from that clutches of relegation zone. That's what we'll be hoping for. And it's a huge game, really, against Leyton Orient, who are in 16th. Not pulling up any trees this season, it must be said, compared to last season, where they definitely overachieved. 1-1 draw is what I'm going to go with in this one. Reading versus Exeter City. Reading in 13th, Exeter in 10th. A much mid-table clash, although both of these have picked up a fair amount of points in the last 6 games or so, steering both sides firmly away from relegation zone, much more into comfortable mid-table. I think this one, therefore, will be an interesting game at Majewski. I think it will be a 0-0 draw. I can't quite pick a winner out of these two sides at present. Newport County versus Accrington Stanley. Newport won their last game, another 1 point off safety, and I do suspect they do manage it, to be honest. They've had a bit of a shake-up during the middle of this season, and since Christian Fuchs has been in, I think performances have marginally improved. They're up against an Accrington Stanley side who've got nothing to play for, realistically. 16th, not much. They're well clear, 14 points clear of relegation, miles away from promotion, your bog standard mid-table side. So I think Newport County do win this one 3-1 at Rodney Parade. Barnet versus Tranmere Rovers of a mid-table clash, 13th versus 17th. Tranmere have lost the last 3 games in a row, and I do struggle to see what their aspiration is for this season. I think Barnet can pile on the misery of late and win this one by 2-0. They're at home as well. Bromley versus Crewe Alexandra. Keep on thinking, Crewe. Will they, won't they end up in a playoff race? It's really hard to tell because just as they begin to appear like they might be, they fall away. Bromley, well, you can run out of superlatives to describe how good Bromley have been of late, but maybe an unlikely win for Crewe in this one. I've gone 2-1 to Crewe at Alexandra. I can't justify it, but I do think it could potentially happen. Cambridge United versus Shrewsbury Town. Cambridge on an incredible run of form. They're now only goal difference away from that automatic top 3. And they'll be hoping for it. And I do suspect maybe that Salford fall out of it at the moment and suspect that Cambridge will be the team to take their place. Up against Shrewsbury, which are a poor side this season. They may just about fortunately stay up because it's a very congested relegation battle this season. But I think they lose heavily here. They lost heavily against MK Dons and lose heavily 4-1 to Cambridge United. in this midweek fixture. Colchester United versus Grimsby Town. Colchester on a good run of form, looking like they probably might get playoffs at this rate. Now, don't discredit Grimsby, who are also on an immense run of form. 4 wins on the bounce. They've got an outside chance, I would suggest, of potentially getting into the playoffs. And I think they actually might win here. Windy conditions do tend to favour Grimsby. So I got 2-1 to the Mariners. Harrogate Town versus Fleetwood Town. Yes, Fleetwood, well, we have had news from Fleetwood. They have sacked their manager. An interesting decision, to say the least. No official new manager has been appointed as of yet, but Pete Wild, in a wild decision, has been sacked as manager. And what would be even wilder is if they appoint Chris Wilder as manager. Right, sorry. I had to get the puns out of the way. I do apologise. I mean, it has divided a lot of the fan base. Fleetwood are firmly in mid-table in 15th. A lot of people were saying, well, they're a typical League Two club. What do they expect? Do they really suspect that they're going to be higher than mid-table? Other people point to their recent past in League One. Others say that they had a small budget and one of the smaller size of fan bases. It's all very much a divisive one. I'm personally not entirely for it. I don't know. I know he's not won a game in the last 5, but I think I'm more siding with the people at Fleetwood probably are a non-league team playing slightly above their station. And depends who their next appointment is, but it needs to be a strong one, is what I would suggest. 3-1 to Harrogate Town in this one, purely because I have no idea how Fleetwood are going to cope now without their manager, and they've not been doing very well at late either. Harrogate, I do suspect, will be relegated at this rate, so we need to book their ideas up. MK Dons versus Bristol Rovers. I've got a weird premonition that Bristol Rovers somehow beat MK Dons. They have got a few slip-ups in their team, it must be said. I think they do reach playoffs. Maybe even they reach that 3rd place, to be honest. And Paul Warren could probably thank his lucky stars if they do. They've obviously recruited quite well. Brought in Curtis Nelson recently from Derby. He's a solid, cracking centre-back. Really wish him the best. But I'm going to go with a 1-0 to Bristol Rovers in this. Notts County versus Swindon Town. Yes, interesting one here. Maybe you could probably argue a promotion challenging, maybe automatic challenging 6 points. I know Swindon have dropped off a bit of late, but Notts County, you know, they're in the playoff positions as well. I'm going to go with home advantage and Notts County to win 2-0 in this one. Salford City versus Chesterfield. Chesterfield have been poor in the last couple of weeks. They've now dropped out of the playoffs and they're 4 points off the playoffs now. And Salford, as an alternative, well, they're in 2nd place on a really good run of form. Maybe Chesterfield can come out of nowhere and shock us again, as they have so often this season. And they do score goals, Chesterfield. They do. 43 goals scored is one of the better numbers in the league. We're going to go with a 4-0 here to the Spyrites. I hope they get playoffs and then beat Notts County in maybe even like the final. That would just make it, or even pick them to that 7th place spot. Obviously, it's Notts County in 7th place. Walsall versus Crawley Town. Walsall doing what Walsall do with bottling the top 3. They look in the first half of the season as if they're going to get the title, and now they're down in 5th. And it's a difficult battle. Crawley won their last game, and they are 2 points from the relegation zone, so every point for them counts. I think they'll be really determined for this at the Bescott Stadium. A 1-1 draw in this one. A game which I'm surprised to have seen is actually on is Rochdale versus Rochdale versus Southend United. Because Rochdale, whenever I hear of Rochdale, they always have a game called off. So I'd be surprised in current weather if the game does go ahead. But from what I can tell from the BBC, they are due to be going ahead tonight. Let's just see. I'm going to go on their Facebook just quickly, see if they have released anything. Yeah, it seems to be all ready to go. But fair enough. But yes, this is an important game as well. We can't understate the importance of this. Only National League game. We don't do National League Cup, partly because no one takes it seriously. So I might do a poll at the beginning of next season to see if people want me to do it. But yes, Rochdale in second, but 3 games in hand. This is one of them up against over New York City in the top of the league, and there's only 1 point stopping them. I still reckon they get second, but it's an impressive Rochdale team, isn't it? Southend slipped out of the top 7 of the playoff places in their last game, dropping at 2 points to get only a point in it. They will definitely get the playoffs. They got 3 games in hand, rather, up against Halifax. I suspect they would at least get a point, enough to make up that difference. However, this is one of their games in hand, and it's a difficult one. It's a very difficult one. I can't really tell which one this way is going to go, but I suspect it's going to be Southend edging it out, because they have it 4-3 to Southend, but it could go either way. It really could. Bedford Town versus Kidderminster Harriers. Bedford in 16th. I mean, what did many people suspect? They maybe might be able to get a few places higher, to be honest. It's 3 points behind Chorley, Curzon, Ashton and Spennymoor, all of them on 34. But this is a difficult game. Kidderminster are winning left, right and centre. I know they've got a draw a couple of games back, but before that, they were on another mazy run of form. And yeah, Kidderminster Harriers to win this one by 3-1. They have locked in at the moment. Leamington versus Kings Lynn Town. Leamington bottom of the league, although they did win their last game, quite surprisingly. Maybe a little too late for them to turn around, but I do suspect they could. I think Alfreton at the moment, I'm worried if they could probably finish bottom of the league, especially if Leamington are hitting form now. They're up against Kings Lynn, who haven't won in a while now, which is slightly concerning for the Linnets. 4 points above a relegation zone. Not a lot. I think they might want to get a win here, and I think they do. 1-0, a very narrow win for them. Marine versus Chester, 11th versus 12th. A very tough game to call which way to go, to be honest. But both, they could either be really good on their day or really bad on their day, and that's sort of why they're in that mid-table bunch. I'm going to go Chester's way in this one, 3-2. I believe Marine's pitch is all weather, so I don't think this game will be called off. Merthyr Town versus AFC Telford United. Merthyr did lose their last game, but let's face it, before that, they were on an absolute storm going up the leagues. And you know what? I think they get back to winning ways in this one, quite clear to me. I know Telford are also on a good run of form, and I do think they do reach playoffs. Especially, did they win 8-0? Was it? I think it was an 8-0 win, which really boosted their goal difference not that long ago now. But yes, Merthyr Town to win this one by 3-1. Yeah, watch out for Telford. I will say that. Peterborough Sports versus Macclesfield. Also, people will probably be saying watch out for Macclesfield, but we've seen it out all season. They have won the last 3 games in a row, but you know, it's the game in hand that we need to worry about. But if they can't get fully the points on the doors, then maybe don't need to worry too much. But you suspect Macclesfield will beat Peterborough Sports, who are in the relegation zone at the moment. And the table doesn't lie. You know, and I know Peterborough Sports have got 2 games in hand up against Oxford City. So there is always the option that they get safety. But I suspect in this one, 3-1 to Macclesfield. Radcliffe versus Scarborough Athletic. 5th versus 8th. Scarborough dropping out of the playoffs due to the last week's loss. And Buxton, as a result, taking their place in the playoffs. Yes, I feel like it's been more of a mountain now for Scarborough to climb. But both Radcliffe and Scarborough have been throwing away points of late when they were doing so well in the first half of the season. I think we could see a really exciting 3-all draw in this. Certainly one for the neutrals to check out. And if you are in that Greater Manchester region, I would suggest seeing Radcliffe tonight. Worksop Town versus Darlington. Darlington have pushed themselves into the playoffs. Will they stay there? 50-50. They are also a bit of a 50-50 side themselves, Darlington. They're up against Worksop, who I think will be relegated. I say that every week, and you know what? The gap is closing. They're 5 points now off the relegation zone. I'm just hoping Alfreton of a team which capitalised it, which would be an 8 points overturn, but we have seen weirder things. 5-1 to Darlington in this one. Another further worsening of already pretty bad Worksop goal difference, but they conceded 52 goals at the moment, which is the worst in the league. There's a reason, I keep on tipping them for relegation. Flipping it. I don't know if you can hear any of the wind. It's proper battering against the side of my house. But yes, Bath City versus Slough Town is what we've got next. 18th versus 19th. A bit of an important game. Both of these two teams, I think, may have a bit of ability to breathe. With now 4 points Bath are away from relegation and 6 points for Slough. Slough has certainly been on a better run of form of late. The Rebels really kicked into gear for a few games. But, they've slightly dipped away maybe in the last couple now that they're over that dotted line. And at Twerton Park, I could see Bath taking the initiative and winning this one by 2-0. Dagenham and Redbridge versus Eastbourne Borough. 4 losses in a row for Eastbourne. Who is the manager of Eastbourne, and how have they managed to go down this far down in this position? Tommy Widdrington, I'm beginning to question maybe he should be sacked. I know he came in halfway through from Aldershot, and he's not turned around to this absolute sinking ship, which I didn't really suspect from Eastbourne, if I'm being honest. Dagenham and Redbridge haven't been a great team of late either. Only a couple of wins in the last 6 games. Certainly expect more from the side from East London. I do suspect they win this one, though, and the 5th defeat in a row for Eastbourne, and Tommy Widdrington probably deserving to be sacked. 2-1 for Dagenham and Redbridge. But yes, if you are an Eastbourne fan, do let me know what has happened to your club. How have you ended up from challenging for the playoffs and promotion to potentially being relegated? Hi, Keseho. Hi, New Short, Indiana 5665. Great to have you on board. Enfield Town versus Dorking Wanderers. Enfield are in the relegation zone. It's not really too surprising, is it, if we think about it? They've been poor and they've been flirting with it a lot of last season. Dorking Wanderers, well, they're in 4th, 2 points off the top position in the league, but I suspect they won't be able to get it. I suspect 4th will probably be roughly where they finish. It's a very competitive at National League South, as it always seems to be now, doesn't it? I'm going to go with a 2-0 win, though, for Dorking Wanderers. Just got to keep on churning out them wins for Surrey side. Hampton and Richmond Borough versus Woking. Not Woking, sorry, Worthing. Different team, different place. Worthing second in the league. If they can take the opportunity, they could get top of the league at this point. And I know they've been throwing away a few points of late, no wins in the last 4. But, I still suspect Worthing take the title. I can't see Hornchurch winning this. But that's the mad thing. And Hampton Richmond Borough, it's between them and Farnborough. I think they keep on doing a merry dance of rotation. If Hampton Richmond win their game in hand, then they go out relegation zone. But yes, it's a bit of hokey-cokey, in, out between them two teams at the moment. Worthing, I think, do win this one. I think it'll be a competitive game. 3-2 in the end to the side on the Sussex coast. Maidenhead United versus SE2. Maidenhead are an odd one. Yeah, 3 points off the playoffs. I do strongly suspect they get them. But that's purely because, they've been for years in the National League. I was surprised to see them be relegated, and I'm really surprised to see them not in the playoffs at the moment. But when you look at it, there's a reason for that. The defence is great, but offensively it does need a bit of improvement. And I think AFC Totem may be able to win this one. And they're odd because they're sort of really bad at defence, but really good at offence. I think AFC Tottenham win this one 2-1. No particular... It could really go the other way, to be honest. Maidstone United versus Ebbsfleet United. 11th place Maidstone versus 7th place Ebbsfleet. Ebbsfleet are won 5 in a row. They will definitely get playoffs. I'm confident of it now. And considering how bad they were last season, I really wouldn't like them to be promoted, to be honest. But that's just personal preference because I thought they were so awful last season. Maidstone, well, they're in a tricky position. They lost their last one. Before that one, a decent run of form themselves. And you keep on thinking, if they just continue chipping on away and getting a run of form, they'll sneak into the playoffs. But not quite good enough yet. But I think maybe at home, they could win this. 3-0 to Maidstone is what I'm going to go with. On to Salisbury versus Chippenham Town. Bit of a local rivalry in sorts here. 17th place Salisbury versus bottom of league Chippenham. There was a point about a week or so ago that we thought maybe Chippenham, they were on a decent run of form and could have seized this. Well, they lost the last couple, and that mojo has now beginning to fade away. Salisbury unbeaten in the last 3 now. I think Salisbury win this 3-2. I think Salisbury, if they can improve their goal scoring output, then relegation woes will be far, far away from them. We've got some Champions League games coming up this week as well, starting with Arsenal as they are taking on Karat Almaty. Should we just call them Almighty? They're a team from Kazakhstan, right? They've got nothing to play for. This is a dead rubber game. Karat are playing for local pride, bottom of the league, unsurprisingly, losing all 4 of their last games in the Champions League. Arsenal have so far won every single one. There's no danger of them not qualifying automatically. It's a nothing game. And it's going to end 0-0. As a result, I don't think Arsenal will field anywhere near a strong team. I think they just chuck their under-21s on and see how they perform. Eintracht Frankfurt versus Tottenham Hotspur. This one's got a bit more importance from a Tottenham perspective. It's essential that they don't lose and preferably win in this one. They're only 1 point within the automatic zone. An Eintracht Frankfurt, well, we know the German side, well, they've not got anything to play for either. It's mathematically impossible for them to get into the playoffs. I think Tottenham win this one 1-0, and Thomas Frank, so far, seeming a bit lucky to still be in his job. If he can get them to qualify automatically for Champions League, it does ease the pressure a bit. I think that would be fair to say. Liverpool versus Qarabag. It's a must not lose, essentially, for Liverpool. I think if they don't lose, then it's all but confirmed for me that they're going to be automatically qualified. They should be winning against Qarabag, but you know what? Qarabag are in 18th in the playoffs for a reason. They've also got something to play for. They can't lose this. If they draw, they'll more than likely end up staying in the playoffs, but they'll be wanting to make sure to win this, and they've caused a few upsets already as an Azerbaijani team. So a 0-0 at Anfield, I don't think is beyond the realms of possibility. Manchester City versus Galatasaray. 11th place, Man City need to win this, essentially, to qualify automatically. I don't know if they necessarily will, because Galatasaray will be pumping everyone behind them to make sure that they at least get in for playoffs. I think the Turkish side could cause an upset of the Etihad and draw 0-0 with Man City. They've not been the greatest of late. Napoli versus Chelsea. Well, Napoli, as it stands, are just outside the automatic, not the qualification, sorry, the playoff qualification by a goal, again, compared to Olympiacos. So they will be hoping to win this. And, well, Chelsea, they're 1 goal difference plus away behind, just ahead of Barcelona, rather, and Sporting, and actually quite a lot of teams. Chelsea essentially need to win this. I don't think it's going to be that easily. Napoli, I think, win this. 3-1 to Napoli. Disappointing day for the London side. Paris Saint-Germain versus Newcastle United. 6 versus 7 in the format. Both of these two teams are very similar. Newcastle very much better defensively. Offensively, well, PSG, they got Ousmane Dembele. What do you expect? Having scored 20 goals so far this Champions League campaign. Looking good are the holders. I think Newcastle can maybe hold them to a 1-1 draw. Whether that will be enough will probably remain to be seen at the end of it. But I'm sure Newcastle United will be delighted with how well they've done so far in the Champions League. Looking very likely to qualify for next round. We've also got Aston Villa versus Red Bull Salzburg in the Europa League, rather. It's nothing game for Aston Villa. You know, they're 4 points clear of the team behind in Porto in terms of ones who could potentially catch up into the automatic zone. So it's a nothing game for Villa. They've won the last 4 in Champions League. I don't think it really matters too much if they top the group either. So maybe decide to throw on a few of their kids and see what options they have on the bench. Red Bull Salzburg, well, they're only 2 points off the playoffs. So if they win this, which is a big if, they can get in. And I suspect it will end a 0-0 draw at Villa Park. Not enough for the Austrian side. Nottingham Forest versus Ferencvaros. Ferencvaros aren't actually doing too badly at all. They're in 7th in the Europa League at the moment. I did not suspect that from the Hungarian side, I must say. Nottingham Forest, well, it would be quite funny if they had bottled the playoffs, but that is mathematically impossible. It is also pretty much mathematically impossible. It's not mathematically impossible. It's a large order for Nottingham Forest to be able to jump up to get into that playoffs. There's a lot of teams between them, not into the automatics. They're currently going to be in the playoffs, and that's going to be it. I think a 0-0 draw at the City Ground, but I do hope Ferencvaros smash them. We are playing Bristol City, my beloved Derby County, that is, on a Friday night. A second Friday night fixture in a row. What is going on? This time we're going down to Ashton Gate. We threw away a stupid lead in the 95th minute in the last game. And you know what? Bristol City have got their eyes on the playoffs, and I think they win this one. They've got a lot of former Derby players as well, which is always a bit scary because they always seem to score against you, don't they? I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a 1-0 from Jason Knight win for Bristol City. I don't know if Jason Knight's fit, to be honest, but, you know, or Max Bird or some of the other many players that Bristol City seem to have who used to play for the Rams. Brighton and Hove Albion versus Everton. Bit of a mid-table clash, I think it's fair to say. 10th versus 12th. 3 points separating these two. They'll probably swap come the end of the season. I don't know. It's really irrelevant, to be honest. I'm going to go 1-0 to Everton in this one. Because why the heck not? We can go either way. It's just the way I decided when I made this list. Leeds United versus Arsenal. Arsenal have thrown away a lot of points recently. The last 3 games haven't won. Man City haven't done a great job at trying to capitalise on this, but I would suggest now Man City potentially are the team to claim the title. Because Arsenal are looking a bit shaky. But it's a must-win game, essentially, for Arsenal against Leeds, who look very much likely that they could. They're 6 points now clear of relegation zone. It's getting a bit shaky, I think, at Ellen Road. 1-0 to Arsenal is what I'm going to go with. Not going to be a bad performance from Leeds, but yes, certainly a Gunners win, I'd suspect. Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Bournemouth. Where did this brief flurry of life come from Wolves? I mean, they've definitely left it all too late to do anything about. And I suspect they're now going to go back to being their old poor self. And I think Bournemouth win this one 4-2 to the Cherries at Molineux. Chelsea versus West Ham United. East versus West. London, that is. And West Ham would be very delighted, I think, to win this game. They've won the last couple and they're now 5 points off Nottingham Forest. And I do hope they manage to sway that margin to safety. It's a difficult game against Chelsea, though. They were 1 point off that Champions League positions, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do get it, to be honest. I think we're going to see Chelsea win at home at Stamford Bridge, 2-1 to the Blues. But I think we'd all love to see the Hammers win, wouldn't we? Liverpool versus Newcastle United. Liverpool in 6th. Yeah, I mean, it's not clicking the right way at the moment for Arne Slot's team. That draw against Burnley really was just the epitome of it. But there's been a lot of draws of late. 4 draws and 1 loss in their last 5 games. Not good enough for Liverpool, I would suggest. And it's a difficult game again up against Newcastle United, who are 3 points behind them. They'll be wanting to try and get something to try and keep onto that Champions League positions. I'm going to Newcastle to win this one by 2-1. Pressure will start mounting surely on Arne Slot. I know he won the Premier League last season, but only gets you so far. Leicester City versus Charlton Athletic. Marci Cifuentes has been sacked by Leicester City. I mean, I'm not sure. They're mid-table, and I know they certainly suspect to be challenging up towards the upper echelons of this league. But for me, Leicester aren't the same team that they were. Andy King, interesting, as a caretaker manager. And if you did watch my video, which I released last week, of 10 years since that 2015-16 Leicester winning that Premier League title, taking the world completely unaware to be able to claim that. Where are all them people now? Well, it's changed now, hasn't it? Andy King is the caretaker manager of Leicester City. A week after I recorded that video, well, not even a week after I recorded that video, it's already looking a bit outdated. Yes, Leicester in this one, I think an immediate reaction. You do get that from removing a manager. And you know what? It's going to Charlton as well, who aren't the greatest team in London or in the UK or even in the world. But, 3-0 to Leicester City here. Fairly obvious result for that, I think. Sheffield Wednesday versus Wrexham. It's got to the point now that I just have to predict Sheffield Wednesday to lose every week, and it doesn't fill me with any satisfaction. It really doesn't. I think it's tough. I've been trying to occasionally chivvy myself on to say that they'll get something. They just don't. Wrexham in the playoffs, and I just hope that Sheffield Wednesday could potentially get something from this, but I'm going to go 4-1 to the Welsh side. Stoke City versus Southampton. 10th place Stoke versus 15th place Southampton. Stoke could feasibly get into the playoffs this season. I mean, I'm not discrediting it at all. And actually, I think quite strong urges saying for me that they might do. We do, of course, know the manager of Stoke, Mark Robbins, has got pedigree of getting teams into the playoffs. But a couple of weeks of bad football, I'd suggest. No wins in the last 3. And I think Southampton need to start kicking into gear. They've not been. They may be laying a bit dormant and go on a crazy run after sort of a transfer window shuts. 1-0 to Southampton. Just got this feeling. Blackburn Rovers versus Hull City in a War of the Roses occasion. Hull, they're in the playoffs. I mean, who saw Hull being in the playoffs this season? Honestly, a very surprising addition up there, isn't it? Blackburn in the relegation zone. Well, I must say I did see that coming. A lot of their team and a lot of their management structure was taken away by Derby, nonetheless. And suddenly Blackburn look an absolute shell of them for themselves. 1-0 to Hull City. Another bad result for Blackburn. I don't think they'll quite be relegated because I think actually both Portsmouth and West Brom are worse teams, but you can never say never at this rate of time. Ipswich Town versus Preston North End. Few difficult games Preston have had recently, and it's not going to be any easier up against Ipswich Town. They lost 4-0, I believe, against Middlesbrough last week, Preston, on Saturday. And yeah, it was an early kick-off, and it's going to be another difficult game against Preston, not against Preston, against Ipswich. Preston against Ipswich. Ipswich are now 5 points off the second place at Middlesbrough. They lost last week, which didn't help. I still suspect they might do it. They are a strong team, Ipswich. They really are. Some of them players I look at and just think, geez, they should be in the Premier League. 4-2 to Ipswich Town, then the Tractor Boys at Portman Road. Another disappointing result for Preston, I would suggest. Middlesbrough versus Norwich. Norwich don't get any easier fixtures, do they? Last night they took on Coventry and they managed to claim a win. I did predict it, actually, that exact result. I wasn't surprised. Norwich have now won the last 3 and seemingly have put a bit aside their relegation woes and are hoping for maybe a mid-table finish come the end of the season. But yes, a difficult game again against Middlesbrough, won the last 4 games. But you never know. I think they've shown spirit and maybe they'll get a point in this one. A 0-0 draw at the Riverside. Millwall versus Sheffield United. Millwall in 5th, Sheffield United, well, they're in 17th, they're nowhere, which I think was a bit of a shock for everyone, including the Blades fans. But maybe they'll get something. It is the Championship after all, and I could see them getting something this one. 1-0 to the Blades is what I'm going to go with in this one. I don't rate Millwall at all in terms of being able to maintain that playoff finish. 36 goals scored is absolutely abysmal for a team to finish in the playoffs. Oxford United versus Birmingham City. Wow, what a game I've got predicted for you here, let me tell you that. Birmingham, well, they're unbeaten the last 4, and a couple of points in there. It's not the most impressive run. But you know what, Oxford, they're in relegation zone. I just have a feeling it's going to be one of them days. 7-1 to Birmingham City at Macassar Stadium. An absolute rotter for Oxford United. I mean, I think Oxford fans would be hoping that I am proved severely wrong in this one. But yes, that's what I'm going to go with. A 7-1 win for Birmingham City. Portsmouth versus West Bromwich Albion, rather. A relegation 6-pointer, I'd suggest. 3 points clear of relegation zone is West Brom. 1 point only for Portsmouth. Difficult game, but West Brom, I think they're in trouble, but I do think they win this one. It's an odd one. I think they're more likely. Actually, no, I think Portsmouth more likely. What I say, but 3-0 to West Brom, which might be just enough to keep West Brom up at the end of the season. But I said not long ago that they could potentially be relegated, and I'm not going to back down on that. Queen's Park Rangers versus Coventry City. Coventry are for the taking, in my opinion, at the moment. They're now looking a bit more likely to maybe not get the title. I still think they do, but having a bit of a January blues. And I think QPR can snatch a point here at Loftus Road. A 1-1 draw here. Watford versus Swansea City. Watford did manage to go on that steaming roll to get back into the playoffs from what seemed to be a lower mid-table, potentially relegation threatening side. Well, they're now only 1 point off the playoffs, but haven't won now in the last 3. Maybe they get back to winning ways, though, in this one of a very hit-and-miss Swansea side. You can never quite tell which one's turning up, can you? 1-0 to Watford. AFC Wimbledon versus Bolton Wanderers. Wimbledon, 3 points per relegation zone. Maybe we'll be hoping for some points in this one. It's going to be difficult, though. But Bolton Wanderers, I think they may take their eyes off the ball. After winning against Burton, I've got them in midweek. They may think, you know what, another easy win against AFC Wimbledon. They'll be wrong. A 3-3 draw at Plough Lane, with Wimbledon going in 3-0 at half-time and it taking a half-time bollocking to see Bolton come back level and get a point from this. Bradford City versus Doncaster Rovers in a Yorkshire derby. I actually think Doncaster, of all teams, could win this. I suspect they're only going to go on to a decent run of form. I don't know if it'll be enough to get them to stay up, but it could well be. 2-1 to Doncaster Rovers. It's an odd one, I must say, but we're going with it. Northampton Town versus Reading. This game is playing at 2 o'clock. Please, someone tell me why. Maybe police presence. I don't know. I mean, it seems odd to me. They're relatively local, but not that local. And in this one, I think a 0-0 draw will suffice to say it's not much of a game for Reading's perspective, but for Northampton, every point will count at this stage of proceedings. Barnsley versus Stevenage. Stevenage, as I was mentioning, in 8th, although that may change tonight. Barnsley in 15th, but I think Barnsley in a bit of a better run at the moment. But I think Stevenage get back to winning ways. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to 1-0 Stevenage. They're going to turn it round and get back to winning ways in this one. Burton Albion versus Cardiff City. Another difficult game for Burton Albion. The Brewers are probably not looking forward to this week of football in the slightest. I think Cardiff do win. I don't think it'll be massive. I think Burton will put on a decent defensive show. But yeah, a 1-0 win to Cardiff City. Exeter City versus Rotherham United. We were just mentioning earlier on how good Exeter are at the moment. And you know what? How rubbish Rotherham are as well. And therefore, it's got to be an Exeter win at St James's Park. For me, a 1-0 win to Exeter City. Leyton Orient versus Port Vale. 16th place Leyton Orient are taking on the bottom of the league, Port Vale. We all thought, didn't we? We saw that EFL trophy performance and we saw the win following week. It's like, will they suddenly kick into form? And then they lost the last 2. So flipping normal Port Vale, it seems like bottom of the league, not a hope, downtrodden, it must say. Maybe they get something out of this one. We'll be kind and say a 0-0 draw. I don't think either of these sides are that good at the moment, which may be a bit unfortunate for the two sides. Luton Town versus Blackpool. Going to go with a relatively easy prediction here and go with a Luton win. I know it's a bit of a cop-out, but you know, Blackpool don't seem to have much to play for at the moment, and Luton need all the wins they can get. 3-1 to Luton Town as a result at Kenilworth Road. Mansfield Town versus Wycombe Wanderers, 11th versus 12th. Both of these two teams saw a bit of a resurgence of late, and I think both of them will be hoping to get all 3 points in this one. Quite an exciting game. I'm going to go 2-1 to Wycombe Wanderers, the end of the unbeaten run for Mansfield, I'm afraid. Peterborough United versus Huddersfield Town. Huddersfield in 6th. They're going to be wanting to make sure that they don't quite fall victim of falling out that playoffs, but it's a difficult game up against Peterborough in 9th. Another huge game for Huddersfield. Can they cope well under pressure? I think they do. I think they get a 2-0 win here at London Road. Stockport County versus Plymouth Argyle. I'm actually going to think Stockport might lose this. You know, it could be an absolute audacious shout, but I'm going to go Plymouth on a good run of form. I'm going to go Plymouth to win 2-0, which would be a result. I think I've got them to win now 5 games in a row, that would be. Wigan Athletic versus Lincoln City. I think Lincoln dropped points here, actually. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. Wigan are the draw specialists in this league, having the most amount of draws at 10, tied with actually their rivals, Bolton Wanderers. And it's just Bolton on the other end of the spectrum in terms of me managing to win those games they don't draw. Yeah, why not another draw in this one? Bristol Rovers versus Newport County, a local derby here of sorts. What do they call it? The 7 derby? I can't remember, and it's also a massive game at the bottom of the table. 1 point separating these two sides. It's an all or nothing game. Everything's going to go into this game. Tackles, probably some red cards, goals, and I'm going to have this game to end as a 3-1 win to Newport County. Another 3-1 win for the Exiles. They'll be delighted that I predicted them back-to-back wins. Grimsby Town versus MK Dons. Yes, an interesting one. I think MK Dons, I have got them to win this game against Grimsby. I know Grimsby on a decent run of form, but I think Milton Keynes Dons, they have got, it's probably about a championship level squad at this rate. Certainly an upper end League One team. 3-1 to MK Dons is what I'm going to go with. Accrington Stanley versus Cheltenham Town. 16th Accrington versus 18th Cheltenham. 4 points separating them, but a whole gulf of goal difference. Ironically enough, similar amount of goals scored, 27 for Accrington, 26 for Cheltenham. It's for 28 conceded to Accrington compared to the 45 of Cheltenham, which is the sort of the difference between the two, isn't it? A large degree, maybe it might be, but a 0-0 draw is what I've got in this one. On to the next one. We've got Chesterfield versus Walsall. Yes, could be a... will it be Chesterfield to get another win in this one? I mean, Walsall... No, I'm going to have to back Walsall. I just think Walsall will do enough to get into the playoffs, but that'll be it. You know, I think they may even be the last team in the playoffs, and that's 7th place. But I'm going to go a 2-0 win for Walsall. Absolute ridiculous. Crawley Town versus Harrogate Town. I think Crawley win this. It's a must win for both teams. It's 20th versus 24th. I think Crawley do crawl themselves to a 2-1 win in this one. Maybe in the last dying minutes of the game. And see we're at home, willed on by the home faithful. Crewe Alexandra versus Colchester United. 11th versus 8th. We'll go with a draw in this one. Why not? I think Colchester do throw away points needlessly. So a 0-0 draw at Gretzky Road does make sense to me. Fleetwood Town versus Notts County. Maybe this new manager bounce may be what's needed for Fleetwood, as I think they might have appointed a new manager by this point. And I think they get a point in this one, weirdly enough. A 2-2 draw for the COD Army. Definitely would feel more like a win than a draw for Fleetwood fans against a strong Notts County side. Gillingham versus Bromley. I've got Bromley to go back to winning ways up against Gillingham, who are very hit and miss this season. A 3-0 win for Bromley in what is a bit of a local derby in some senses. There's not much which separates these two teams. Bromley used to be in Kent, of course, before they enlarged the Greater London boundaries. But yes, a very much interesting game, this one. Oldham Athletic versus Cambridge United. I think Cambridge will just keep on churning out wins at this moment in time, and Oldham might be the next victim. 4-2 to Cambridge United. Shrewsbury Town versus Barnet. I think we could see a Shrewsbury win. I don't know why. I think maybe at home, the most unlikeliest events, a Shrewsbury win over Barnet. Barnet's got nothing to play for, let's be honest. So a 3-0 win to Shrewsbury Town. Swindon Town versus Barrow. I mean, Barrow are losing a few at the moment, aren't they? And you know what? I think Swindon, they need to start. It's very, very close, actually. From MK Dons in 3rd to 7th place Notts County. There's only 2 points that separate them. They're very close. So Swindon Town, if they seize initiative here, could be a huge result. 2-0 to Swindon Town. Tranmere Rovers versus Salford City. I think Tranmere might be causing a bit of a thorn in the side for Salford, and that's sort of what they do in this league. They just cause a thorn other teams. 0-0 to the side. Well, we're all between the side from Greater Manchester. Boreham Wood versus Boston United. We've got only a handful of National League games to go through this weekend due to the FA Trophy. Probably got about half the amount that you would usually suspect. And one of these is Boreham Wood, who are challenging for the title. Probably a little too far off the base, but I do think they get third place, and I think it could be probably considered a job well done for the Hertfordshire side this season. Boston, well, they're in danger of relegation, 2 points off the relegation zone. I do think they stay up. I just think they finish in that 20th spot, which, you know what, it wouldn't be too bad for Boston. They're still trying to find their feet at this level. 2-0 to Boreham Wood, therefore, at their home ground. Braintree Town versus Eastleigh. Braintree in the relegation zone, and that will probably be where they stay. They just can't seem to pluck up enough points at the moment to get them out. They're 1 point off safety, but Aldershot are certainly the more informed team. And they're up against Eastleigh, which they could get a result against. Eastleigh haven't won the game now in 3 games. They've lost all 3 of the last 4 games, actually, Eastleigh. And therefore, I think Braintree might win this one by 1-0. Back to winning ways for the Essex side. Certainly an interesting one. Carlisle United versus Altrincham. Yes, an important game for Carlisle here, as they're looking to at least get playoffs. I would imagine they're definitely going to get that, but maybe a bit too far off the pace now. 5 points off the title may seem a bit too far off for Mark Hughes' team. Disappointing result in their last game. It was a defeat 3-0 to York. If that went the other way, you know, that suddenly does mean that Carlisle get into contention of winning the title. But yes, up against Aldrincham, they're in a bit of a false position, I think, at the moment in 17th. They're definitely, for me, going to end up a couple of places higher at least. They're an odd team, Aldrincham, but I do think Carlisle get the job done. 2-1 to the Cumbrian side. Hartlepool United versus Aldershot Town. Hartlepool with their new owners, which they've had for about a month now, and they're 3 points off the playoffs. And never say never for the County Durham-based side, but yeah, I'm not convinced myself. And I normally have to convince myself before I start convincing you lot to think that they can make it. But they're on a decent run of form, it must be said. A draw against Brackley last week, and then a couple of decent wins before that. I know Aldershot on a decent run of form themselves, but maybe at the Suits Direct Stadium, I think that's what Hartlepool Stadium is still called, but 2-0 to the Monkey Hangers. Solihull Moors at Damson Park taking on top of the league York City. Well, Solihull haven't got much to play for. They're a really hit and miss team. They're 6 points off the playoffs. And are they challengers? Are they not? It's hard to tell, but it's going to be a relatively routine win for the Minstermen for me. 3-0 to York City. On to the next one. Sutton United versus Brackley Town. Last one in the National League. And it's a bit of an important one, actually. Brackley in 15th. 5 games now unbeaten. Sutton outside relegation and in 18th. Both of these two teams just making sure that they don't get relegated this season. That will be their remit. Don't know if that would have been a remit for Sutton at the start of the season, but it's certainly the remit now. I'm going to go with a 1-0 win to Brackley Town, continuing their impeccable run of form. Yes, on to the FA Trophy. Going fairly deep now into the competition. We're in the 5th round. Only a couple of, after this, it's for quarterfinals and then it's for semis, I believe. We're certainly getting somewhere, aren't we? The final 16. So, yeah, after this will be the quarterfinals. The first one of which is AFC Telford United at home at New Bucks Head versus Yeovil Town. I think Yeovil Town wants something to smile about, you know. I mean, I know Telford are doing all right at the moment in the National League North, but Yeovil are certainly a side that I think could potentially win this. They see themselves, they've not got a lot to play for this season. 5-0 to Yeovil Town. Chatham Town versus Southend United. Now, Chatham have been doing some giant slaying in all sort of competitions of late. Carlisle United amongst them. Could they potentially add another string to their bow by taking out Southend? I've gone with my traditional 0-0 and Southend United to win, but yet again, I wouldn't be surprised to see Chatham win this one. Forest Green Rovers versus Wealdstone, a all National League affair here, but two different sides of the table to talk about. Forest Green Rovers, well, they might want to win this, but I think maybe not. They're more focused on promotion. I think Wealdstone might win this one. We're going to go with a 2-2 draw on Wealdstone to win on penalties. AFC Fylde versus Southport in an all National League North game. And it's at Fylde's ground. And if Fylde can't win the National League North title, then maybe they'll view the FA Trophy as slightly more important. 1-0 to AFC Fylde against relegation-threatened Southport. I think that they're certainly in danger. They're 5 points clear at the moment, but there's certainly still jeopardy to it. SC Halifax Town versus Kidderminster Harriers. If they can get playoffs from the end of the season and an FA Trophy, that would be huge for the Shaman. Let's not forget the Shaman did win the FA Trophy. Oh, when was it? 2015, 16? I think they won it a couple of times, actually. But they had in one of their teams a Jamie Vardy. So that was certainly an interesting one. They won it in 2015-16 and they won it in 2022-23. So, they certainly like to win this competition. So I think they do knock out Kidderminster Harriers by 2-1. Don't think Kidderminster Harriers will maybe be too concerned. They could have said they had a jolly good go and now they can focus on the league. Scunthorpe United versus Horsham. I think we could see a 0-0 draw and Scunthorpe win this one, but don't discredit Horsham. They have been a sleeping, not sleeping giant, a sleeping, I don't know what you call it, but an underdog maybe of sorts, but they're not the huge underdog stories that maybe the FA Trophy has been talking about at the moment, but they've certainly been slowly creeping up the leagues, haven't they? Tamworth versus Marine. An interesting one. This is my upset for you. I think Tamworth will be taken to penalties after a 1-1 draw, and Marine will win it on penalties. And they're going to be that underdog ones that they're going to cheer through, potentially. The final one, we've got Walton and Hersham versus Woking. And sorry if a game that Walton and Hersham would have probably definitely wanted. A home tie against a fellow Surrey-based side. Definitely winnable for Walton and Hersham. I wouldn't discredit it. They've done some interesting bits already. 1-1 draw, but I just think on penalties Woking will edge them. But it's been a jolly valiant effort for the side from Surrey in Tier 7. Buxton versus Spennymoor Town in the National League North. Buxton going to add another win to their collection, I think, here. Spennymoor have been atrocious of late. I saw the reverse of this fixture, and it was a relatively even game at Spennymoor, but now you're looking at Spennymoor, they're shipping 5 or 6 a game in some of their games of late, and it's been absolute dire straits for the County Durham side. Therefore, I'm going to be generous and go with a 1-0 win to Buxton. And I do hope the Derbyshire side also slay Spennymoor. Chester versus Radcliffe. Could be an interesting one. I think Chester is suddenly going to spring into life. I don't know why. It could just be a team that they've been big before and not this season. But I just think Chester could do something here and win 2-0 at the Diva Stadium. Do we see a late surgent push by the capital of Cheshire side? We'll have to see. Chorley versus Peterborough Sports. Chorley, they're all you can never quite place your fingers on which Chorley team are going to turn up, can you? Peterborough Sports, well, they'll be looking at this one, thinking if they can get a result, suddenly things don't look too bad. I'm going to go 0-0 draw here, which maybe isn't entirely the best result for Peterborough Sports, but it's at least a point on the board. Curzon Ashton versus Hereford. Curzon Ashton have been at horrendous games in their games of late. They've lost the last 3 in a row, and truly, truly dreadful performances, it must be said. I think Hereford maybe add the pile onto the misery. I think they've got a few games in hand. They've actually got 4 games in hand against Peterborough Sports, and then 6 games in hand up against Oxford City out relegation zone. A lot of their games have been called off. Now, that's a blessing and a curse at the same time. A lot of games play in a short time frame is what I'm imagining. But also, if they start winning them games, they can tear themselves out relegation zone. So they're a huge unknown quantity in this. And if Hereford win this, I'd say keep your eyes peeled of them. 2-1 to Hereford. Darlington versus Merthyr Town. 2 teams currently in the playoff. 3rd place, Merthyr versus 6th place, Darlington. I think we're going to see a relatively even game in this one. A 0-0 draw. I think Darlington maybe prefer that more. I'm not sure. Kingsley Town versus Alfreton Town. I'm hoping for a win for Alfreton, but they've been letting me down game after game this season. But it's not a difficult game as per se. Kingsley are now looking in real danger. A must win, I must say, and stress for Alfreton, but I think they get only a 0-0 draw. Another disappointing day at the office for Jake Buxton's men. Macclesfield versus Bedford Town. I mean, Macclesfield, they're going to get playoffs, surely. I mean, I keep on flipping between the two because there's so many games in hands. It's such an unknown quantity because of their amazing FA Cup run. And that could cause burnout. But we'll have to see. I think they do, for now, beat Bedford Town 2-1 here at Moss Row. Oxford City versus South Shields. I mean, they're currently now 6 points clear, South Shields. Fylde may have a game in hand, but surely this is the time for them to get promoted and swap places with rivals Gateshead. And there's an intrinsic linking between the two sides. And if you do want to know about the South Shields versus Gateshead sort of history and overlapping between the two, I might make a video about that. We'll have to see. There's a few videos I've noted down ideas for. But South Shields versus Fylde should have been a game on tonight. And they'll probably be a bit grateful it isn't, because that's going to be a huge game. And I think everyone would rather that be on a Saturday. 4-1 to South Shields for me. Oxford City are in danger of being relegated. And South Shields certainly looking confident. And they slayed with relegation threatened at Leamington only a short time ago as well. Scarborough Athletic versus Worksop Town. I think Scarborough win this and potentially get back into playoffs. We'll see. There's a lot of spinning plates about that. A long way to go as well with some of the midweek games on tonight. But 2-1 to Scarborough Athletic up against the Nottinghamshire side. It works up. SE Toton versus Hampton and Richmond Borough. Well, Toton is such an odd team. I don't know which ones are going to turn out, but I do think Hampton Richmond Borough therefore might get an unexpected result in this one. The Beavers, I believe is their nickname for Hampton Richmond Borough, are going to win this one away from home 2-0. It'll be a good result for the side from Greater London. Chippenham Town versus Chesham United. Chippenham bottom of the league, but maybe they get back to winning ways in this one. I mean, Chesham have been good of late, but you'd have to say Chippenham value this game probably a bit more because I doubt Chesham get into the playoffs at this current time. Chippenham to win 2-0. Dorking Wanderers versus Salisbury. I'm going to have to say a relatively routine win for Dorking. I know Salisbury have improved of late, but Dorking to win this one 4-2. Eastbourne Borough versus Enfield Town. Relegation 6-pointer doesn't even come close to describing the magnitude of this game. Both teams on 21 points. If someone can win this, give themselves a thin sliver of hope of safety. I think that's going to go Eastbourne's way. It is at Priory Lane as well. 1-0 to Eastbourne Borough. An important game. Ebbsfleet United versus Maidenhead United. An equally important game, just more which team to get playoffs. 7th versus 10th. 3 points separating them, and I can't get out my head of Maidenhead getting into the playoffs. And I think they do it here by winning 2-0 to the Magpies. Farnborough versus Dagenham and Redbridge. Dagenham and Redbridge been all over the place, to be honest, and I think Farnborough might be able to capitalise on that and win it 2-1 to Farnborough. Hemel Hempstead Town versus Dover Athletic. The Tudors are hosting this one, and you know what? Dover Athletic, they're not really doing a lot. Hemel Hempstead will want to win this. I don't know if they do, though. 1-1 draw is what I'm going with, but I wouldn't be surprised if Hemel Hempstead do win it. Hornchurch versus Torquay United. Massive game at the top of the National League South. First place Hornchurch versus third place Torquay. 2 points rather is the difference between these two. Torquay are certainly the most informed out of teams, potentially wanting to claim the title this season. And you know what? I'm going to have to give this win to Hornchurch. We've done a last-minute switch. We're going to go with Hornchurch. We're at home. I would have said Torquay, but you know what? I'm going to fool you all and go with Hornchurch. We're going to go 2-1 to the side based in very far northeast of Greater London. Slough Town versus Chelmsford City. Chelmsford have done all right recently, looking potentially outside favourites for playoffs. I wonder what the odds are for that. Anyway, Slough Town are also on a bit of a good run of form themselves. Maybe for that reason, at Arbour Park, Slough Town could claim the win here, rather, and all 3 points. 2-1 to the Rebels. Tonbridge Angels versus Maidstone United. Tonbridge, well, they're a very mid-table team this season. 15th place for the side, based in, well, it's a Kent derby, isn't it? But Tonbridge Angels and Maidstone United, well, they're also a bit mid-table in 11th, but I wouldn't discredit them quite yet from the playoff charge. I got Maidstone to win this one by 3-1. It'd be interesting to see if they could sneak in. You don't discredit it yet. Worthing versus Weston-super-Mare, another important game at the top end of the table. Second place, Worthing taking on 5th place, Weston-super-Mare. Weston-super-Mare are still only 4 points away from that first place position. They were at 1 point at it. If they can get back to having a consistent performance, you can't discredit the fact that they may be able to sneak in themselves. And for that reason, I've gone with a 3-0 win for Worthing. I think they go back to winning ways, Worthing, to be honest. I think Weston-super-Mare are just not consistent enough. But Worthing, I think, I've said early on in the video, Worthing are going to win the title, and I've got to stick with my guns. Aston Villa versus Brentford, back to the Premier League on Super Sunday. As Aston Villa in 3rd place take on 8th place Brentford. Brentford with a couple of losses now to their name, and Villa have suddenly gone out of form. If Unai Emery's team can get back to winning ways and consistent basis, then I will say it now, this title is still wide open for them. 3-1 to Aston Villa at Villa Park is what I've gone with. A decent enough result. We'll just have to other results go their way. Man United are taking on Fulham. Fair few draws for Man United, isn't it? 8 draws to be in a team in the top 4. They do drop unnecessary amount of points. Fulham sneaking up. They're in 7th. They're actually doing a decent enough job. And I think maybe cause a draw at Old Trafford. A 1-1 draw here is what I'm going to go with. Decent performances by Fulham. If certain things mathematically align, I believe, they could get into the Conference League, which would be quite interesting. Nottingham Forest versus Crystal Palace. Unfortunately, I'm going to have Forest to win. They started picking up points again. They're 3 games unbeaten now, and Crystal Palace, Oliver Glasner's side is all over the place. His head has well and truly been turned. 1-0 to Nottingham Forest, but I severely hope Crystal Palace win. Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester City. going to have Man City to win this. I mean, Thomas Frank's Spurs have been all over the shop of late. They drew against Burnley last week. They've had some horrible losses, 1-0 to Man City. And the final game is Sunderland versus Burnley on this Monday night. I mean, Burnley have been causing upsets a lot recently, haven't they? But maybe the Mackhams get something from this. 1-0 to Sunderland, but I wouldn't be surprised if Burnley managed to get a win here, especially with what happened with Sunderland versus West Ham last week. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you are new around here. That will be hugely helpful. And you know what? We're getting towards that sort of 250 milestone now, aren't we? So hopefully we do that. And I'm going to be probably doing a video soon, I think maybe some point this week, about the footballing history in Rushden. You may be wondering why. Let's just say Rushden Diamonds, former Football League team, what's happened to them. But I'll see you all in the next one, and goodbye for now.